See, the question paper, as I've been repeatedly saying, was not difficult, provided you develop a habit of thinking about the question. Not all questions were straight from the lecture or the book that you read and reproduce. That kind of approach will not be. You have to do a bit of thinking. Though some questions are straight questions, there you can straight away, write down what you have learned in the book. But otherwise, you have to think a little, not very profound or original thinking, but take a little step ahead of what you have read. And that would happen when you develop a habit of thinking on your own. So, I'll take up the first question, which is compulsory and is made up of 5 parts. So, these 5 parts I'll discuss with you today first. Now, the question is, what is distinctiveness of the feminist method of social research? Now, the question has a very specific focus, and that you should not miss. The focus is distinctiveness. How is feminist approach distinct from the normal approach? That part is to be highlighted. Of course, to show the distinctiveness, you have to first talk about what is feminist approach and then highlight the distinctiveness. So, we start by agreeing with the statement of the question in the introduction that feminists advocate a distinct approach to social research. Now, why do they? That's another question. Why do they try to be distinct? So that is what we'll explain. That the feminists attack the male-dominated mainstream research because it is based on sexist and patriarchal principles. That is why the feminists call the mainstream approach as male stream approach. Now, how is it sexist? So they argue that conventional scientific method used by men are not useful to understand the social reality of women because, firstly, they use male samples. They use male samples for study. And secondly, they overlook in their concepts and theories the matters of concern for women, like their exploitation and oppression in patriarchy. So therefore, feminists advocate a distinctive, what is called standpoint epistemology. Epistemology means method of inquiry, knowledge, how knowledge is to be acquired. Repeat. Okay. That they advocate a distinctive standpoint epistemology. Now, their argument is that women experience the social world differently, and the research should therefore focus on women's experiences, particularly their experiences in a patriarchal society. And they further go on to say that even within the category of women, there are different sections whose experiences are different. So the viewpoints of women from different sections should be examined. For example, Dalit women's experiences are different from upper caste women. I'm citing example from India. Muslim women's experiences are different from other religions. Tribal women's experiences are different from non-tribals. So we should look at the experiences and viewpoints of women from different sections. And therefore, feminists say that given the diversity among women, there should be plurality of theories. Different types of generalizations should be developed based on different kinds of experiences. So this is how they try to be distinctive. One. Then, even in techniques of research, they tend to differ. The techniques of research that are to be used. For example, Anne Oakley she suggested an alternate approach to using the interview technique. She says that the proper interview, according to mainstream sociology, emphasizes on too much on objectivity, detachment, and a hierarchical relationship where the researcher dominates the respondents. It emphasizes on objectivity and a hierarchical relationship where the researcher tends to dominate the respondent. See, respondents cannot raise a question, they cannot present their viewpoint freely. They have to be guided strictly by the questions that the researcher has decided in his or her wisdom and ask those questions, answer to those questions. Researcher maintains the distance with the respondents. So respondents have only a passive role in the research. Respondents have only a passive role in the research. As an alternative to that, Anne Oakley suggested what she called collaborative research. She conducted a research on women who were going through the experience of childbirth. They had many anxieties and questions to ask on their own. She freely encouraged that and tried to answer those questions to the best of her capability. She did not ignore it. Then she even shared her own experience of mothering, even helped the women regarding the problems of childcare. So she says that such kind of interactive approach produced better results, better data. She was able to understand women's point of view in a much better way. Because the critics say that this is not a new technique. In fact, it's just a further extension of unstructured interview. So this is about the distinctiveness of feminist method of social research. Any question if you have? Anything you have not understood, please tell me. Yes, she said that we should rather follow a collaborative approach where they participate and researcher also participates actively rather than maintaining a distance. Yeah, in their concepts and theories, they don't focus on the areas of concern for women, how women have to make compromises, what another Turkish sociologist Kudiati has called it patriarchal bargain, that women have to enter into patriarchal bargain, they have to make compromises to ensure acceptance, security, and to gain some advantages from the society. So how they are helpless in situations, how they feel oppressed and dominated, these issues are not the issues of research for male dominated mainstream sociology. See, as you know, no, you to show these are the ways in which it is distinctive. We have already talked about that they are distinctive because one, they suggest standpoint methodology. They are distinctive because they suggest plurality of theories. They are also distinctive because they differ from conventional method of interview and suggest an alternate approach to interview technique. So they are distinctive. We don't have enough feminist sociologists in India. All right. This feminist approach has developed mainly in Western Europe and America. Yes. They did not suggest an alternate approach. What I mentioned to you was Dalit movements, that women's movement in India. So Dalit women say, they argue on similar lines that we should have separate movement for Dalits because the problems and experiences of Dalit women are different from the problems and experiences of upper caste, upper class, westernized women. So the Brahminical patriarchy. So the problems that Dalit women go through are vastly different. And so there should be a separate Dalit movement. That is what I had said. I had discussed it in the context of women's movements in India. That is about movement. That's not about methodology. Here we are talking about the research method, how they differ in research method. That's what we are discussing here. There are no drawbacks. They say women's point of view must be expressed because their fundamental assumption that women experience the world differently than men do. So that should also be given a voice. That should also be expressed. So it is a type of critical research. We have a broader category of research methods or approach to research, which I'll talk about when there is a topic, different theoretical approaches to research. So there is a different approach called critical research. The purpose of critical research is to look at injustice, exploitation, oppression in society and to produce knowledge in order to change society. Knowledge is not just for knowledge's sake. Knowledge is for better society. After all, sociology is a socially supported enterprise. So it should work for a better society. So they look at the problems of all oppressed groups, including women. So feminist research methodology is a branch of critical research methodology and it tries to compensate for what is lacking in mainstream research, which is predominantly male dominated. Then the next question that you have, which is a straight question, discuss the relationship between sociology and political science. discuss the relationship between sociology and political science. Now, when you have to answer such kind of question, you have to compare the two disciplines, highlight the similarities and differences. Similarities and differences with respect to their origin of the two disciplines. Similarities and differences with respect to the methodology or the scope of the two disciplines, and similarities and differences with respect to areas of investigation, whether they are becoming similar or they are diverging, becoming different. So, in this case, sociology and political science are closely related disciplines, which, according to some sociologists like Baltimore, have been proceeding towards a partial merger, fusing into each other, becoming indistinguishable. But it's only partial merger. They remain two distinct disciplines, nevertheless. Now, as far as their scope is concerned, political science remains confined to areas connected with political system, within a society and between societies. This international relationship between the societies, political system of different societies. On the other hand, sociology has a broader scope. It is concerned with understanding the entire society, all dimensions and parts of society. So it's concerned with family, it's concerned with religion, it's concerned with community life, it is concerned with social change, concerned with social stratification. So it has a broader scope. Now, according to Baltimore, traditionally, political science had three main aspects. One, a description of formal political structures, parliamentary form of government, presidential form of government, unitary government, federal government, like that. Classification and observation of formal political structure. Then they also looked at practical political problems. And thirdly, a large area of political science, which is generally referred to as political theory, has been concerned with philosophical analysis. It has been mainly concerned with political philosophy. Now, to some extent, sociology shares a common origin with political science. In the sense, sociology, which emerged much later than political philosophy, was influenced by political philosophy of the Enlightenment period. Montesquieu, Rousseau, all these political thinkers and their ideas influenced the rise of political philosophy. And that in turn influenced the emergence of sociology. However, once sociology developed, it has deeply impacted political science. It has brought about a change in the approach to the study of political phenomena. While political science tended to look at political phenomena in isolation, sociology looks at political phenomena as just one of the elements in the entire society, which is closely connected with other aspects of society. So political issues, even formal aspect of political systems, were not viewed in isolation, but in the context of the overall social milieu. Karl Marx's theory initiated this line of thinking. Recall our discussion on Karl Marx. What did Marx say? That political system is conditioned, shaped, determined by the economic organization of society. The political behavior is governed by emergence of social classes. Parties represent class interests, and so on. And Marxist ideas then provoke further discussion in this, while preserving the idea of interconnectedness of political system with the larger society. Other dimensions were highlighted by Weber, Robert Michel, Wilfredo Pareto. And as a result of this, there emerged a common area of study between political science and sociology. An area which is probed, investigated, and explained both by sociology as well as political science. That is, study of political elite, political parties, voting behavior, pressure groups, civil society, and political ideologies, bureaucracy. So these are the areas which became common areas of study between political science and sociology. In fact, this sphere was called political sociology, and it overlapped with political science. In fact, Bottomore would say that a large part of political science literature cannot be distinguished from political sociology. Then there is another reason for convergence between the two disciplines. Rise of developing nations, new nations. And studies of political development in the new nations. Now, political systems, even though formally alike, but in practice, they function differently in developing societies as compared to developed societies. And this was because of the difference in nature of developing societies. So once again, the political phenomena came to be studied in the context of social structure, society, social milieu. If I'll give you an example, to understand politics in India, you have to understand caste. Caste is an aspect of social structure, an area of interest for sociology. And because of politics, caste stands transformed. So sociologists also look at the nexus between caste and polity. Political scientists also look at nexus between caste and polity. And that's how they exchange ideas with each other. And that is why we can say there is a truth in the statement that the two disciplines are heading for partial merger. Though they remain two distinct disciplines, but there is a great deal of overlap. Is that clear? Have you understood? Then there is another question which strictly speaking is out of syllabus. Only, by taking a, extrapolation of the syllabus, by making an extrapolation of the syllabus, we can include this. How? I'll tell you. What is the question? Let me tell you that first. The question says, how does dramaturgical perspective enables our understanding of everyday life? Now, this question on dramaturgical perspective has never been asked in the main examination, at least since 1981 when I started teaching sociology. It has not been asked in the main examination. Because the thinker is also not mentioned in the syllabus. The thinker's name is Erving Goffman. He was an American who can be called symbolic interactionist. Now, syllabus includes Mead, from whose ideas symbolic interactionism as an approach has developed. And Goffman was greatly influenced by Mead as well as Mead's disciple Herbert Blumer, who formally coined the name symbolic interactionism for his approach. Goffman was a close associate of Blumer. So it is only in that extended link we can justify this question. Otherwise, it was a practical joke on the students, because this question has never been asked, and therefore normally we don't discuss this topic in the class. Goffman. All right. Coming back to the question, that we say in the introduction that dramaturgical perspective was developed by Erving Goffman, who was greatly influenced by Mead and Herbert Blumer. His most important work relating to dramaturgical perspective was, I am telling you the title of his book, Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. So therefore, this dramaturgical perspective is a micro-sociological approach. As he himself says, what he is concerned with is everyday life, day-to-day interaction between individuals and groups. So it tries to understand the interaction process in everyday life. Why is it called dramaturgical perspective? That Goffman compares the day-to-day or everyday life with drama or with theatrical performance. When we are interacting in day-to-day life, we are behaving like actors in a drama, or we are enacting a theatrical performance. So there is a stage and there is an audience. Stage means the social situation in which one is interacting. For example, presently my interaction with you can be compared with a drama. So there is a stage and you are the audience. There is a script, a set of ideas, norms and values which is supposed to influence my behavior. And it can be, then the stage can be divided into front stage and the back stage. Now, the interaction in the front stage has been labeled by him as an encounter. So there is an encounter between you and me. Now, in the encounter, actors try to present an idealized version of themselves. So, as a teacher, I would try to present myself as a highly knowledgeable person. I may drop names to show that I am very well read. I may try to present an idealized version of myself that I am a very competent teacher. That is impression management. And through impression management, I try to convince the audience. Actor tries to convince the audience through impression management. Convincing the audience means making sure that audience respond the way I want them to respond. By impression management, I try to control and regulate the behavior of the audience. And further looking at the details, he says the front stage is divided into two parts: the personal front and the setting. There is a setting. For me to behave like a teacher, there must be a classroom, there must be a board, there must be a podium, and so on and so forth. All these, the physical setting. That's one part of the front stage. Then there is a personal front. Which consists of again two parts: the appearance and the manner. Appearance and the manner. Appearance means, like if suppose I am a surgeon, I must be wearing the surgeon's gown, I must have a stethoscope around my neck, I must have other equipments of performing surgery. So that is the appearance. And there is a manner. I should display confidence enough that I am competent to perform the surgery. I won't operate on the wrong eye. Now, in that, he also introduced a concept called role distance. That to convince others, the actor tries to put on an impression that he is much more than what he is doing. That while discussing sociology with you, I may try to talk about history, about psychology, about biology, about politics, trying to show that I am not just a sociologist, I am much more than that. This is called role distance. Role distance. I detach myself from the role I am performing and try to portray myself as much more than the role. So this is how the interaction goes on. You can take the example of, I have given you one example about myself in the class. You can take another example of online dating. So you have impression management through carefully selected photographs, carefully worded tweets and status updates, selective display of friends list, etc. By that you try to present an idealized version of yourself, by which you want to impress the audience. So this is how he says that social life at day-to-day level is like a drama, proceeds like a drama. This helps us to understand why people are doing what they are doing. That's how it helps us to understand the everyday life. but it has also been criticized that it gives the impression that social life is a great con game. Everybody is conning everybody else. Everybody is manipulating through impression management everybody else. Because he says the backstage is different from the front stage. Backstage is our real self, where all the preparation goes on for the performance in the front stage. So we are all cheating each other. That's the impression it gives. After all, people may be genuine, honest, and true also about what they are doing and saying. So this has remained an interesting area of discussion in micro-sociology. He doesn't talk about the macro structures, the class divisions, the institutional arrangement, and so on. He only focuses on interpersonal, intergroup interaction at the micro level. Personal front is a part of the front stage. In front stage, there are two things: personal front and setting. Setting is the physical arrangement. That for a surgeon to behave like a surgeon, there must be an operation theatre. He cannot behave like a surgeon on the tea shop outside the hospital. So there must be an operation theatre. That's a physical setting. Clear? And the second is the personal front. The manner and the appearance by which I try to convey an impression on the observers, audience. Online dating, the pictures that are presented are in a setting. You are standing in a, you take your photograph in a, you can say a park or in a hotel or in a market. Different physical settings are there in which you present yourself. Huh?
Whatever preparation goes around
that is backstage. You prepare for that in the backstage. That is what goes on secretly inside you. What you do before, like what I did at home to be able to talk to you about sociology lecture in the class. It is not that just I woke up from the bed and walked into a class. I did a lot of homework for that. That's the backstage. Because of which you get an impression that I am knowledge, all-knowing, super intellectual. That's the impression I may try to create. I am very highly well-read, so I mentioned so many names. But it is not always cheating. Sometimes you need to mention that information to make the point you are genuinely trying to make. So the criticism is that it makes the social interaction appear like a con game, manipulating each other. Yes. In a situation, the actor and everybody else is the audience. The members of society. You are not interacting with the whole society. For this moment, my society is you people sitting in front of me and I am interacting with you.
The smile is getting into front stage and the anxiety or something.
Yes, is the backstage situation. Even in the photographs that you post, you are very careful to present a version of yourself which you think is desirable. So the undesirable aspect is hidden.
looking at the meanings and responses of the audience members and then
No, he is saying that there is a script which tells him what to expect from the audience. There are norms, there are values, there are beliefs. That is the script. The actor does not just act like that. He is guided by the script. Like in every movie, there is a script writer who lays down the basic script. Actor acts according to that. So according to the script, actor knows what to expect from you. All right, what is my legitimate expectation? So I should now create an impression that you behave as per my expectation. A shopkeeper may try to show that he is very honest and what he is selling you is something very cheap and very durable and very good item by presenting an idealized version, though he may be fooling you.
Today life
Yes, day-to-day interaction has to be understood in terms of these indices. That okay, if that interaction is there, what is the front stage? What are the personal front? His appearance has to be understood as personal front. His behavior is to be understood as an act of impression management. So this is how it helps us to understand why a person is doing what he or she is doing. Then the next question is reference group theory a universally applicable model? Elucidate. Now, he is not saying what is reference group theory. He is saying is reference group theory universally applicable. That point has to be highlighted. Your focus should be on that, discussing its universality. So this is the next, that additional step that you have to take, because when we discuss in the class, you know what is the reference group theory, but at that time we did not address this aspect, whether it is universal or not universal. So you have to now think and address to this question that is it universal? For that, of course, briefly by way of introduction, you will have to talk about what is reference group theory also. Only then you can comment on it, its universality or otherwise. So, in the introduction, you can start that reference group theory tries to understand human behavior in terms of subjectively significant factors. That's what is special about it, and that's where comes the issue of universality, that those subjectively significant factors, are they universal? Now, the reference group theory initially developed in social psychology in the writings of Herbert Hyman, Shubhra, Theodore Newcomb, Harold Kelly, and later on R.K. Merton. Now, the theory presented by social psychologists particularly in terms of classification of reference groups, did represent universal human motivations. The classification of reference group was based on universal human motivations. For example, Newcomb talks about positive reference group and negative reference group. Positive reference group means those whom we admire. Negative reference group means those whom we dislike. Now, this is a universal fact. There are some whom we like and there are some whom we dislike. So it is a universally valid classification that reference group can be of two kinds, either positive or negative. What is positive for one may differ from what is positive for another. But there are always two types of reference group. That's universally applicable model. Second, Newcomb also talked about the classification of reference group as membership group and non-membership group. That when we emulate somebody's behavior, it may either be our own group or maybe some other group. Example is, we may admire Indian way of life and try to behave as a traditional Indian, or we may behave in a westernized fashion. So then we are guided by non-membership. Then Kelly talked about a classification of reference groups as comparative and normative reference group. This is also universally valid, that there are two ways in which we use a reference group. What are the two ways? Either we compare for self-evaluation. To decide whether I am lucky or unlucky, I compare myself with someone. So that's a comparative reference group. Alternately, we emulate someone as a role model. That's a normative reference. So these classifications are universally applicable model. But then we have Merton, who in his theory tried to identify the determinants and consequences of reference group behavior. Merton, in his theory, tried to identify the determinants and consequences of reference group behavior. Here, he relied on an empirical study conducted by Samuel Stoffer. A study conducted by Samuel Stoffer in which empirical data were collected. The title of the study was The American Soldier. Stoffer, Samuel Stoffer, Samuel, Samuel Stoffer, Stouffer, Samuel Stoffer. The American Soldier. Now, so his theory was a grounded theory, and as we know that Merton was an advocate of middle range theories. He was personally not in favor of formulating universal theories. So perhaps he did not intend his theory to be a universal model. It is general, no doubt, but perhaps not universal. Add the word perhaps, because Merton has not clearly stated in his study, in his essay, that whether it is a middle range theory or a universal theory. Clear? So the point I wanted to convey was how you to address to the main issue in the question, that whether it is universal or not universal. Some people would simply write down what is reference group theory. Then you will not get marks. After very briefly talking about reference group theory, you have to come to the main point, that whether, how far is it universal and how far it is not universal. All right. That point has to be highlighted. This is how you have to be sensitive to the wording of the question. Then the last one, there are 5 questions which are compulsory. This is the last one I am taking up. It says, do you think that the boundary line between ethnicity and race is blurred? Justify your answer. For your information, this question has been straight away lifted from Haralambos, page 159, where Haralambos only says that actually the line between ethnic group and race is blurred. Now, so how do we answer the question? We have to agree with the question. there is a justification in the statement. So I start the introduction by saying that ethnicity and race are closely related concepts. The sociologists believe that the boundary line between them tends to be blurred. And this is evident from the way these concepts are defined. See, right in the beginning, I am showing my closeness to the focus of the question. I'm not starting, this is ethnic group, this is race, and go on discussion. Coming directly to the question, I'm answering the question, not reproducing sociology. So, this is evident from the way they are defined. For example, according to Milton Yinger, Y-I-N-G-E-R, Yinger, ethnic group is a segment of larger society seen to be different in some combination of language, religion, race, ancestral homeland, and its related culture. Do you understand the meaning of the statement? That the ethnic group is a group which tends to be distinct in some combination of these parameters. These parameters may or not all would always be present. So it consists of people having a distinct language or distinct religion. Often they claim to have a separate homeland, a common origin, and also similar racial characteristics. Now, so although ethnic groups share a distinctive culture, that is more important aspect of ethnic group, they also tend to be racially distinctive, because they tend to claim and believe that they have a common biological origin. And secondly, because of a distinctive cultural identity, they tend to be endogamous and therefore have similar racial traits. For example, Parsis in India. Parsis marry only within themselves, and even their biological traits tend to be similar, if not exactly alike. Same is the case with African Americans. Now, furthermore, though races are biological classifications, but there is no such thing as pure race. What we find in reality are ratio-cultural groupings. People having a distinctive culture also displaying some common racial traits. So therefore, the distinction between race and culture is blurred. Clear? So this is how he says, justify your answer. This is how I have justified the answer. That they tend to be blurred. So this much for today. Then another day I'll take up few more questions because your course should also proceed. So I'll now take up the research method topic.